when people ask me how are you, the only answer I can come up with these days is amazing, which tends to, people kind
It's
of
like, why? Welcome everybody to the Acquisition HQ podcast, where we cover over individuals who are wanting to buy companies, sell companies, individuals that have funded companies, and what it takes in order for you to do that. What it takes is a lot of the mental aspects, right? And as a coach to the top 1%, you know what that's like, and you've been able to interview, you've been able to walk people through strategic and difficult times. I want to read your bio here before we get started, but thanks a lot for being here today. So Lane Monson is a personal strategist for executives who refuse to settle. With a corporate legacy as a global CEO, entrepreneur, he now guides high net worth individuals and high stakes leaders to redefine what is possible for their business, for their lives, and for their legacy. Lane combines elite performance frameworks with boardroom intelligence, offering an executive coaching experience through his coaching business, Platinum Circle Coaching. Let's welcome Lane Monson to the Acquisition HQ podcast.
Thank you. Super happy to be here with you, Nate.
Yeah, you as well. We've had a long history, and I've derived a lot of wisdom from you, and I just want to be able to share that more to the people in this world. So share with me what your perspective is on legacy lifestyle and what that means.
Most of the individuals and the teams that I work with really are focused on that. Rather than just doing what needs to be done day in and day out, they're thinking about the future. Mm-hmm. And you and I have talked a lot about frameworks over time, and one of my favorite frameworks that another coach, Doug Stoddard, and I, a good friend of mine, came up with is called the VIP framework. And it really stands for, and with this mic here, it's kind of hard to,
use your hands.
Hands, but picture a pyramid, if you would. Mm-hmm. And on the left side of the pyramid is the V for VIP, which is vision, and on the right side is the P for purpose. And so with vision, the questions to ask are, where am I going? What am I creating? And what do I really want? So there's just those three questions. And then the purpose side, the other side of the pyramid, is why am I going there? Why am I creating that? And why do I want that? And the clearer that you can get on that, on those two, then you can start thinking about who am I, or what is my identity? That's the I in the VIP. Who have I been? Who am I now? And who must I become to create this vision and this purpose? And for most of those that I work with, it's been elevated from what's my purpose just for this business or for my career if you're a corporate executive, and really what am I trying to create? What kind of an impact or influence am I desiring to have in the world?
How does one, as they've established their understanding of the current purpose that they have, and then how do they get to another level, and does their purpose change? Have you gone through specific coaching times with individuals that have had those different changes?
Yeah, a lot of people believe that your purpose is your purpose and it never changes, that your identity is your identity, who you are or how you see yourself never changes, and that what was that third thing that you mentioned right at the end?
Well, just the challenge that one goes through from a mental state of mind,
and does it change? And does it change? And so the third piece is really our values or our core values. And my belief is that all of those can and should shift and change over time. How I saw myself as a teenager and as a young adult, and then a young husband and a younger father, and early on in my career compared to where I am right now in the businesses that I'm creating and building, and ultimately, and hopefully we'll get to it sometime during the call, but my legacy, not for profit, and I'll just name it right now, but ultimately for me, it's Grandparents for Good, which will be my nonprofit organization that's going to focus on 8-year-olds to 28-year-olds who are making the most challenging decisions in their lives and typically least prepared to do so.
Well, and that's good to know, because a lot of times, you as an entrepreneur, or those out there that are listening to this, you'll have a specific segment that you'll push for a little while, because
Yeah.
that's the goal.
Yep.
But then there's this jump that must be made in order to raise your standard. Can you walk us through a framework or some form of understanding on how you can increase your level of productivity, performance, to get to that next level to create a new plateau?
Yeah. Ooh, I love that question. So let's go back to the VIP framework for just a minute. The more frequently, even if it's daily or at least weekly, that we're asking ourselves those questions. I mean, think about yourself back when you were in college, and maybe in your first job. I think you were in the corporate world for a while before you came out and really decided I'm more of an entrepreneur than I am a corporate guy. You had very different goals and objectives at that point than you have now.
Yes.
And so what was it for you, looking back, that caused you to make that shift in your own mind from these are my goals and objectives and my purpose to, wow, this is really what I want to create?
For me personally, it was just, I saw an impact that I wanted to make ultimately in the lives of many, many people.
Okay.
Which had always been something that was taught to me, but also, kind of like a vision that I had for myself.
Yep.
But I knew that if I didn't take action on that I would regret, because a lot of times.
And this is from the time you were very young?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is from
So
the time
there's always been something in there that said, I want to do more.
Well, and I think also too, that comes back to the environment that you're placing yourself into, and I'm sure we could probably talk about environment.
Yeah.
But if you're continually having support system that
Yeah.
continually pushes you to specific levels, but yeah, that's one of the reasons why I did make a change.
Okay. No, so that's interesting to hear that, and that's one thing that I do find often is that people, if they start to think about where am I really going, what am I really creating, what do I really want, and why, they start to tune into or tap into some of those innate desires that they've had from the time they were very, very, very young. And so you go back to the VIP framework. Where am I going? What am I creating? And why? And what do I want? And the why? And then who must I become to do that? Your subconscious will start to feed you thoughts and ideas, and you will start to enter into different levels of conversations with people that then can lead you to what is that more, or what is that different, or what is that better. And a little bit of the how reminds me of 2 years ago when you had asked me to come and speak at one of your networking events. And we were talking about, Lane, I've got a 7-minute segment here that I really want to fill with some powerful thoughts or a powerful framework on how people can move from where they are really to get to their best possible performance or 1% performance. And I remember the day that we came up with the title is, what's the secret to 1% success in 7 minutes or less? And I think I can really cover it in about 2 minutes. And this feeds into how do we make that move from where am I today and where's my focus to getting to that next level. And here's a perfect example. The World Series just ended, and it was just an epic World Series between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. Dodgers ultimately eked out and win it in Game 7. But if you look at all of those players, every one of them is a 1% performer. They wouldn't be in the 2 best teams in the world if they weren't 1% performers. And so what are the 4 basic abilities that all of the baseball players have to have? And it's running, and it's throwing, and it's catching, and it's batting or hitting. They all have to be 1% at that level. But there are 3 uncommon abilities that the top, the 1% that the Dodgers had, or the Dodgers and the Blue Jays over the rest. And that is belief. How much do I actually believe that I can achieve that level, that I can win what's my level of desire? How badly do I really want that? And what am I willing to sacrifice or give up in order to get to that level? And then the third, getting back to identity within VIP, is how do I see myself and how do I see my team? And so that's all well and good, but how do we apply that to life as business owners, entrepreneurs, corporate executives, founders, anybody in high-level leadership roles? It gets back to 4 common abilities and these 3 uncommon abilities. And so the uncommon ones, again, are the same: desire, belief, and identity. The common ones for business leadership and getting to that next level are, first of all, I'm going to just grab a glass of water here real quick. The foundation is really connection with people. The more conversations we're having with people, the more deeply we connect with them emotionally, and the more they feel understood by us, the deeper level of conversations we're able to have, which then open up greater possibilities than we've ever had. And so that's really the foundation. The second one gets back to where am I going and what am I creating, VIP framework. The third is asking higher value questions. And this is one thing that's very uncommon anywhere in business, and the top of the top are always the best question askers. So when we ask high value questions, we get higher value responses or higher value answers that then help guide us to that next level. And finally, it's just all about the champion's mindset. What do I really believe? What am I? How aware am I? And how well am I learning through life's very difficult challenges along the way? So hopefully that's helpful to answer that question about how do we get from here to really even think about that next level.
I'm excited about this one that I have another question about.
And you are one of those great question askers. I've loved that from the time we met.
You got to be patient enough to really understand.
Yeah.
Now we're walking through this as a story, and I'm almost putting myself in this character book, but now we're about to step into this world that we have no vision for. Like, we've never been to this specific mountaintop before. Okay. And there's fear that comes in.
Okay.
And for every entrepreneur out there, there's fear that comes in. For it's the big, hairy, audacious goal that we've set. We know that we can accomplish it because we've previously done and had some successes with previous goals. Okay. But now, how do we address this massive fear? Because again, I'm going to address you out there because you're either you want to buy a company, you want to sell your business, and these are some big decisions to be made.
Yeah.
How do we address that from a mental standpoint?
Yeah. 3 thoughts come to mind. And one of those is just thinking about building our own physical capacity. And so most people, if they want to build muscle, they'll go to the gym. And what I've learned over time is if you go to the gym and you stare at the weights for an hour every day, and then you leave, you're never going to build the muscle or the capacity that you need to be able to lift more. And so continuing to lean into the uncertain and the difficult challenges is what really builds the muscle for every business owner, so that you're fully prepared to step to that next level or take on that next challenge or that next risk. And so leaning into the difficulties builds capacity. The second one is a concept that a lot of people have heard of, but they haven't really dug deeply into the principle, but it's called VUCA. VUCA. It's an acronym, stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Are you experiencing, or are you seeing founders and business owners experiencing any of those things today?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yep. I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
No matter what level you're on.
No matter what level, what level we're on, and just look at what's going on globally, as well as locally in our own communities, as well as in our country here in the U.S. Everything has changed from 5 years ago. everything has changed. And so you can either, go back to bed and put the covers over your head, or you can lean into volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And those that do that are the ones that rise very quickly. And what gets them through is flipping the script and having VUCA stand for 4 other words, which is vision and understanding and clarity and agility. And a lot of times you have to create that, and the only way you do it is go, well, here's where I want to go. I'm not quite sure what all the steps are, but here's the next one, and here's the next one, and you take that next step, and then you observe what happens, and then you make adjustments, and then you move forward. The other thing that I find is so many business owners and corporate executives have been trained from the time they were young that you have to do it all on your own. If you don't, then you don't get full credit or something like that. And I think part of it is from the time we're in school is, all right, you need to study, and then you need to take this test, and you need to do it on your own, and don't seek any, don't talk to anyone else about it. And so we have those deep-seated beliefs. But when you get into business or any leadership role, the best leaders are those that figure out that they need to seek, whether it's coaches or peers, wise counsel, and even learning from those. I mean, my goal was always to hire people that were much smarter than I was when I was in the corporate world, and even now with my own businesses, hire people that are really, really smart, give them really difficult challenges, and then expect them to solve those difficult challenges. So hopefully that's helpful, and if you've got other questions related to that,
absolutely.
fire away.
I think that there are, again, I like this. We're going through this whole story that we've created now about mountaintops and various plateaus, and how we're walking through this, because as entrepreneurs, and business owners, it's difficult. It can be difficult at one level and it's difficult at the next, right?
Yeah.
But it's also extremely important that we have the right people around us. Mm-hmm. But I want to know when you need to get rid of people.
Yeah.
In a respectful way, and not like, hey, you're no longer associated with me now. Yeah. How do you do that? And why would you do that? And I'm sure you've seen it, over your career.
And over again. And it's tough. I have found that the very best leaders, even if they've had to fire or demote or move people into, out of their role into other places, or even in their own networks, if they've had to move on and they just don't have the time to put into some people that they were very close to, that it's still difficult. The best leaders don't just go, oh, you're gone, you're gone, but they have empathy for that individual, but they figure out at some point that, think about our thoughts and our emotions to start with. If you are a leader and you know where you're going and what you're creating, you know that only certain thoughts are going to support you along the way, and only certain emotions or feelings are going to take you, and certain beliefs and certain frameworks are going to take you there. And so the first job is remembering that if you're having thoughts or emotions that aren't going to support you, that it's your job to basically tell them that. You get to come along because you're going to help me reach my vision and my mission and my purpose, and you don't get to come along. And so starting to lead your own thoughts and your own emotions and uncovering those can be difficult. That's where someone like myself comes in to help people really identify them and name them and uncover them. The other is the same thing with people. Whatever you are building or whatever you're creating, if it's just your life and your family life, your social life, or in business, certain people will get your vision and they will have the skills, abilities, talents, and gifts to help you get there, and others won't. And it becomes really important to have a very candid conversation with them that says, I love you and I care about you, but here's where I'm going, and the skills and the talents that you have right now are no longer going to help us get there. And so I'm going to give you the opportunity to go find another business or another company, or even other friends that are closer to the way that you're thinking and your abilities. And it's just never easy. but that's what I found works best.
Upfront communication through that, assertive communication, in regards to your specific goals, because their goals aren't your goals.
That's right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that the more that we realize that, and the more that we have those candid conversations, then the more free that we're going to feel, but also maybe we inspire others to also increase their threshold.
Yep. I remember the first manager that I had to fire when I was a new VP at Oracle. And it was tough. I could tell that he was miserable, the team was miserable, and he was a very, very smart guy, and he worked harder than anybody I knew, but his talents were not a match for the job that he had been given. And I remember having the really difficult conversation, and we did end up letting him go, and he had a little bit of a severance package. And I remember 6 months later when he called me and he said, thank you. I have found a better job. I'm making more money. I'm supporting my family better, and I'm happier, much happier than I was when I was there working with you. And so that candor, being very candid with people, is the kindest thing usually that we can do.
Yeah, there's just so much to talk about here. I'd like to just kind of ask you now a more personal question, as well as where your business is at, and then also how can people get a hold of you, and then also go through the process of the frameworks that you've developed.
When people ask me how are you, the only answer I can come up with these days is amazing, which tends to, people kind
it's
of
like, why?
Let
me know more.
How can I become that, and why is that? And I have my coaching practice that's now turned into a coaching business, and so I'm acquiring other coaching companies and bringing the talent and the materials, the intellectual property together. 6 months ago, bought the domain. Don't have the website set up yet, but thebigcoachingcompany.com. And I know I'm to create a bigger coaching company and bring in more individuals that are working with more people to help them get to their next level. And then we talked a little bit about Grandparents for Good, and I've set a huge goal. And when I speak it to people, and I'm going to speak it right now because it gets me closer to the commitment to do that, but I've made a commitment to myself to write out a check for $1 million to start Grandparents for Good in December of 2026. So that's 1 year and 1 month from now. And that's not in the bank account and available for that purpose yet, but I'm 100% convinced that it will be between now and then. And a big part of that is what's going on with the growth of my coaching business, not just a practice, and my land development business. And I've got a couple of partners in that business, JLM Development. And in Utah, there is such a need for attainable housing. Couples are really struggling to be able to afford a home like my wife and I were able to do when we first started our family. And even older couples that are retired and maybe don't have the same amount of income that need to downsize, and it's hard to even do that. And so we are finding parcels of raw land, pretty large ones, and getting them entitled and developed to where you can have smaller lots and smaller patio homes, and in some cases townhomes that people can actually afford to get into and to start building equity. And there's such a huge demand right now, and we've learned, shout out to my mentor, Larry Myler, who's taught me everything that I need to know about land development. And it's not only progressing rapidly, but financially creating the levels of wealth to be able to invest in things like not-for-profits and foundations that can continue to help people even after I'm gone.
Well, what I've heard from you, and it should ring true for those out there as well, is one, coaches have coaches and mentors. You never know everything.
Yeah, I have really strong coach and mentor that I work with regularly today.
Number two, you're always raising the threshold of challenges. Which
Constantly.
it sounds like you are doing right now with doing your due diligence to make an acquisition or multiple for that matter within the space that you serve.
Yep.
With expanding, your operations with your land development as an entrepreneur. So you're in the trenches talking to other founders that are also doing, what they say they're doing and
Acquiring and providing that which can be acquired for other acquirers.
Well, I'd like to, end out today's podcast just with a question about a lasting word of wisdom for our audience, just about your specific skill set and some of the things that you've seen from, individuals that are still they want to make that jump. So let's speak to them now.
Okay. One of my favorite things to do in the world is have meaningful conversations with leaders, business owners and corporate executives. And I can be reached through connectwithlane.com/30. That's my link that you can come to my calendar and schedule 30 minutes. And so anyone that's thinking, I may have some patterns of thinking or patterns of feeling, emotional patterns that are getting in my way and keeping me from getting to the next level, and yet I've not been able to discover them or fully uncover them or even name them. Anyone that's listening to this podcast, feel free to go to connectwithlane.com/30, and we'll have a 30-minute conversation, and I'll help you to uncover one of those thought blocks or emotional blocks that are preventing you from getting to the next level. So that's number one. Number two, it really is all about awareness. What we're not aware of, we can't address. And usually what's preventing us from getting to our next level anywhere in life is those thoughts or those emotions or those beliefs that we've probably had for a long, long time, but we don't know what they are. We haven't identified them. And so that would be my advice. Find an advisor, a coach, a friend, a colleague, your boss, your leader, someone that you can go to that can help you uncover those thoughts and those emotions that are holding you back.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time. And as far of awareness, ladies and gentlemen that are listening to this, we have a network that you can be a part of. It's, you and I are both in that network. It's called the Acquisition HQ Network. You guys can learn more about the Acquisition HQ brand at acquisitionhq.co. And as a part of the acquisition ecosystem, we also have our national conference, which is going to be held in Salt Lake City. You guys can look that up at aquacon.live to meet other people just like Lane. Lane will be one of our participating speakers / interviewers of a 7 to 8 figure founder who's going through the psychology of that exit. And we believe that
I'm super excited about. So is Mike. That'll be worth just being there to.
I agree.
To
I mean, and the
interview.
people that we're attracting as a part of our ecosystem, they speak a different language, kind of like what we were talking about.
Yeah.
They speak in more belief as opposed to what can't be done.
That's it.
It's a constant thought process that we are integrating into our culture. But, again, thank you so much for joining us today on the Acquisition HQ podcast. And guys, if you like today's episode, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as go to the website. We look forward to shooting another podcast for you, and make sure to let us know what our next episode should be. And we'll look forward to making this content for you.